my dad came at me like it was a law. Hand over your penthouse to your brother. Then he slapped me hard. I didn't yell. I just calmly said, thank you. A few days later, they got a taste of what a real slap felt like. You know, there are moments in your life that hit you like a punch to the gut. Moments so profoundly unfair they redefine everything you thought you knew. For me, that moment was standing in a ballroom packed with 210 of the city's most influential people, watching my own father raise his hand and slap me across the face, all because I dared to say no. My name is Franklin, and I'm 32. I'd built a real estate empire from absolute scratch, my proudest achievement being a luxury penthouse downtown, a true masterpiece. But that night, in front of all those elite guests, my father looked me dead in the eye and demanded, hand over your penthouse to your brother. When I refused, his palm struck my cheek. I didn't yell. I didn't fight back. I just looked at him, the sting spreading, and whispered, thank you. Before I dive deeper into how I got here, I just need to say, if you've ever had to stand your ground against family pressure, hit that like and subscribe button, because this one's for you. I was born the first son of Robert Williams. His name wasn't just a name. It was currency, respect, power, echoing through every real estate office in our state. Our family mansion sat on 3 acres of manicured lawns in the most exclusive neighborhood of Boston. From the outside, we had it all: wealth, status, influence. But behind those grand, ornate walls, life operated on a strict hierarchy, and my father was the unquestioned king. My earliest memories? They're all about trying to please him. I remember being 6, beaming with pride, showing him a perfect spelling test. He glanced at it, a flicker of something in his eyes, and then said, that's what's expected of a Williams. No congratulations. No smile. Just a cold reminder that excellence wasn't an achievement. It was my basic obligation. My mother, Elizabeth, was a former beauty queen who'd married into this world. She handled the social events, kept up appearances, but emotionally, she checked out years ago. She poured all her affection, all her energy, into Joshua, my younger brother, 5 years my junior. Joshua never felt that crushing pressure I did. When he brought home C's, my mother would just shrug. Not everyone needs to be academic. When he, God forbid, broke an antique vase while roughhousing, my father would sigh and call the housekeeper. The double standard was glaring, painfully obvious to me, but completely ignored by them. Our family dinners were these elaborate performances of perfection. My father would grill me about school, future plans, who I was networking with. A Williams man must be exceptional in every regard. He'd remind me, week after week. Meanwhile, Joshua could kick his feet against the table, interrupt conversations, do whatever he wanted without a single consequence. Despite all of it, I excelled. Honor roll every semester. Captain of the debate team. Accepted to Harvard Business School. Each achievement, each sacrifice, earned me nothing more than a brief nod from my father. The unspoken message was clear. This is merely what you owe the family name. My mother's neglect was subtler, but it cut just as deep. When I won the state business competition in high school, she missed the ceremony for Joshua's soccer game, a game where he mostly warmed the bench. You understand, darling, she'd said afterward. Your brother needs encouragement. The implication, of course, was that I didn't. Our family vacations to Martha's Vineyard each summer became increasingly uncomfortable as I got older. My father would introduce Joshua to his business associates as the charming one, while referring to me as the serious one. The subtext was undeniable. Joshua was loved for his personality. I was valued only for my potential contributions. College, thankfully, offered a brief escape. There, I met Emily Taylor. She was a brilliant economics student with warm brown eyes and a laugh that just made everyone around her smile. Unlike my family, Emily saw me. Not just the Williams heir, but Franklin, the person. She celebrated my victories and comforted me during setbacks. For the very first time, I experienced unconditional support. Your family sounds like they're stuck in a Victorian novel, she once said to me after I described a particularly tense holiday dinner. Then she added, something that blew my mind. You know, you don't have to earn the right to be treated with basic respect, right? Emily's perspective was revolutionary. Could it be true that I deserved recognition simply for being me? The concept felt completely foreign after years of conditional approval. When I brought Emily home to meet my parents during junior year, their reaction was incredibly telling. My mother thought Emily was lovely, but perhaps not quite right for a Williams. My father was more direct, smart girl, but doesn't bring the right connections. Keep your options open, son. Their casual dismissal of Emily, the one person who truly valued me, crystallized something deep inside me. I began questioning not just their treatment of me, but their entire value system. By graduation, my mind was made up. I would forge my own path, create success on my terms, and build relationships based on genuine connection, not strategic advantage. This decision, I knew, was setting me on a collision course with everything my father had meticulously planned for the Williams legacy. The day after graduation, my father summoned me into his study. That mahogany-paneled room, with its imposing desk, was designed to intimidate, and honestly, it still worked, even after all those years. "You'll start at Williams Development on Monday," he announced without preamble. "Junior executive position. You'll shadow Preston for 6 months, then take over the North Shore project." It wasn't a question. It was a command. 22 years of conditioning almost made me nod automatically. Instead, I took a deep breath. "I've accepted a position with Green Future Development," I replied, my voice steadier than I felt. "It's a smaller firm focusing on sustainable building practices." The silence that followed was arctic. My father's face hardened into that expression that had terrified household staff for decades. "You'll turn that down immediately," he finally said. "No son of mine works for a competitor, especially some tree-hugging startup." "I start next week," I stated, rising from my chair. "I just thought you'd want to know." Walking out of that study was the hardest and most liberating moment of my life up to then. My mother cried. Joshua smirked. And my father? He didn't speak to me for 8 months. Green Future Development was indeed smaller, just 12 employees in a converted warehouse space downtown. My starting salary was 1/3 what Williams Development offered. My apartment was a studio with unreliable heating in a transitional neighborhood. But for the first time, my successes and failures would be entirely my own. The learning curve was steep. At Williams Development, I would have had teams of assistants and analysts. At Green Future, I made my own coffee and stayed late formatting my own presentations. Every mistake was painfully visible, every victory hard-earned. 6 months in, I met William Carter, a 65-year-old former developer who'd pivoted to sustainable building before it was even trendy. He came to consult on a project and took an interest in my ideas. "You've got good instincts," he told me over lunch, "but you're still thinking inside conventional boxes. What if we approached urban development with completely new assumptions?" William became my mentor, challenging me to reimagine what luxury real estate could truly be. Under his guidance, I developed a philosophy that merged high-end amenities with environmental responsibility. "Most developers see these as opposing forces," I explained during a pitch meeting. "Either you build opulent spaces that waste resources or eco-friendly units that feel austere. I believe the true luxury of tomorrow is having both." 2 years of grinding work later, I secured funding for my first independent project, a small but innovative apartment building featuring cutting-edge energy systems hidden behind classic architectural details. The waiting list for units grew faster than anyone predicted. Meanwhile, Joshua had finally joined Williams Development after drifting through several positions arranged by my father. Occasionally, I'd see him at industry events, always surrounded by my father's longtime associates, who'd laugh too loudly at his jokes. "Still slumming it with the granola crowd?" he asked at one real estate awards dinner. "Father says you'll come crawling back once you need real capital." I didn't bother responding. My second and third projects were already fully funded, each more ambitious than the last. Industry publications began featuring my work, noting the unusual combination of luxury aesthetics with environmental metrics that outperformed much larger companies. Along the way, I formed partnerships that became true friendships. Thomas Reynolds, a brilliant finance specialist who left a banking career to join my growing team. Jessica Montgomery, an architect whose innovative use of space and light transformed my theoretical concepts into beautiful reality. Together with William's continued mentorship, we created a close-knit group united by a shared vision, not by obligation. Emily remained my strongest supporter, her own career in economic development flourishing. We moved in together after my third successful project, creating a home that felt nothing like the cold perfection of my childhood house. Your father called the office again. She mentioned one evening as we enjoyed dinner on our small balcony. Asked when you were going to stop playing with your little green company and rejoin the real business world. I laughed, but the constant dismissal of my achievements still stung. Despite growing industry recognition, my family maintained that my success was either temporary luck or beneath notice. My mother occasionally attempted reconciliation through carefully worded invitations to family events. I attended some, enduring my father's backhanded comments and Joshua's transparent jealousy. These visits always left me drained, with Emily spending hours afterward helping me process the subtle and not so subtle put-downs. They can't see your worth because it threatens their worldview, Emily observed. If you can succeed on your terms, it means their rules aren't absolute. This perspective helped, but it didn't entirely erase the longing for parental approval buried deep within me. Part of me still hoped that enough success would finally make them see me, truly see me, for the first time. With that unconscious motivation driving me, I began planning the project that would change everything. A penthouse development unlike anything the city had ever seen. The Genesis Penthouse project began as a risky proposition. The building was a historic Art Deco masterpiece, its top floors abandoned for decades due to structural concerns. Most developers considered it untouchable. Too many preservation restrictions. Too many engineering challenges. That's exactly why it's perfect, I explained to my investors. We'll restore rather than replace. Incorporate the original elements while adding cutting-edge systems invisible to the eye. The result will be both a preservation triumph and the most advanced living space in the city. Securing the property required calling in every favor I'd earned over the past 5 years. The permitting process alone took 8 months of negotiations with historical societies and building authorities. Jessica worked nights and weekends, perfecting designs that respected the building's heritage while accommodating modern luxury expectations. This isn't just another project for you, is it? William asked during one late-night planning session. There's something personal here. He wasn't wrong. While I hadn't consciously planned it, the penthouse represented something beyond business success. It was tangible proof of my philosophy that preservation and progress could coexist beautifully. On some deeper level, perhaps it also represented the validation I still sought from my family. Construction challenges emerged at every turn. Original materials needed specialized craftspeople to restore. Modern systems had to be integrated without disturbing protected elements. The budget strained under unexpected discoveries behind old walls. We can scale back some of the features, Thomas suggested during a particularly difficult financial stretch. No one would notice if we used standard fixtures instead of custom. Everyone would notice, I insisted. Not consciously perhaps, but they'd feel the difference. This has to be perfect. 18 months later, as the final touches were completed, even Thomas admitted I'd been right. The Genesis Penthouse transcended ordinary luxury. Original Art Deco moldings framed walls containing state-of-the-art insulation. Restored herringbone floors concealed radiant heating systems. Hand-restored ceiling murals glowed under lighting that adjusted automatically to natural conditions. Industry recognition was immediate and overwhelming. Architectural Digest featured a 12-page spread. Sustainability journals praised the innovative energy systems. The mayor presented an Urban Preservation Award at a ceremony covered by national media. Emily and I celebrated privately the night after the official opening gala. I'm thinking this should be our home, I told her as we stood on the wraparound terrace overlooking the city lights. Not just an investment property. Her eyes widened. Are you serious? This is worth a fortune as a rental. Some things are worth more than money, I replied. I built this place imagining us here. The decision to make the penthouse our home transformed it from a business triumph to something deeply personal. Every corner reflected our combined vision. Emily's love of open spaces and natural light. My appreciation for craftsmanship and history. Word of the penthouse's success eventually penetrated even my family's selective hearing. My mother called to congratulate me, her first acknowledgement of my professional achievements without qualifiers. Your father was quite impressed with the write-up in Business Weekly, she mentioned, her tone suggesting this was the highest possible praise. He showed it to everyone at the club. A week later came the call I'd both longed for and dreaded. My father himself, inviting me to lunch at his private club. The meeting was predictably strategic. After brief congratulations, he got to his point. Williams Development could use your expertise in the green building sector, he announced, as if offering a tremendous favor. The market's shifting that direction. You could head a new sustainability division. I stirred my coffee slowly. I'm not looking to be acquired or employed, father. His expression tightened. Don't be stubborn, Franklin. You've proven your point with this little venture. Now, it's time to bring your talents back to where they belong, the family business. My company generated $40 million in revenue last year, I replied calmly. We have projects contracted through 27. This isn't a little venture. It's a successful enterprise built on principles I believe in. The lunch ended with strained cordiality, but the invitation had revealed something important. My success had finally grown too substantial to dismiss. My father now saw my company as valuable, even if he couldn't bring himself to acknowledge my personal achievement. Joshua's reaction came through industry gossip channels. Apparently, he'd been overheard at a networking event complaining about Franklin's ridiculous treehouse palace getting undeserved attention. The childish jealousy would have been amusing if it hadn't been so transparent. As my father's 60th birthday approached, my mother increased pressure for family harmony. It would mean so much to him if you attended the celebration, she pleaded during a rare visit to the penthouse. She wandered the space with poorly concealed envy, trailing manicured fingers over custom details. The whole industry will be there. Family appearances matter. Against Emily's concerned advice, I agreed to attend. Perhaps naively, I thought the public setting and my recent successes would ensure at least superficial respect. Just remember who you are now, Emily cautioned as she helped straighten my tie before the event. You're not that kid desperate for their approval anymore. You're Franklin Williams, who built Genesis on his own terms. I kissed her forehead, grateful for her unwavering support. I know, I said. It's just a birthday party, not a surrender. How wrong I was. My father's 60th birthday celebration exemplified the Williams approach to life. Excessive, impressive, and strategically advantageous. The Grand Plaza Hotel's ballroom had been transformed into a showcase of wealth and influence. Crystal chandeliers reflected light onto tables adorned with arrangements of imported flowers. A string quartet played subdued classical music as 210 of Boston's elite mingled, each person representing a business connection, a potential partner, or a useful alliance. I arrived early, gift in hand, a rare first-edition architectural book my father had once mentioned wanting. Emily had offered to accompany me, but I decided to attend alone, perhaps subconsciously preparing for confrontation. My mother greeted me with air kisses and whispered instructions. Your table is near the front, darling. Do say hello to the Andersons. They've been asking about you. Joshua and his fiancée, Sophia, were already holding court near the champagne fountain. Sophia wore diamonds that caught the light with every animated gesture. Her father owned Sunrest Properties, one of my father's biggest competitors. The engagement had been announced with the same strategic fanfare as a corporate merger. Big brother, Joshua called out, a little too loudly. Decided to leave your solar panels and come play with the grown-ups? I nodded politely. Joshua, Sophia, congratulations on your engagement. Sophia smiled with professional precision. Your penthouse project was featured in my father's company newsletter. Very creative approach. The faint condescension was typical of interactions with my family's circle. I had ceased being bothered by it years ago. Dinner progressed through 5 elaborate courses, each accompanied by perfectly paired wines. I made appropriate conversation with tablemates, a banking executive and his wife, a city council member, 2 real estate attorneys. None mentioned my work directly, though several alluded to interesting trends in alternative development. After dessert came the moment every wealthy patriarch lives for, the tribute speeches. 3 business associates delivered carefully calibrated anecdotes highlighting my father's business acumen and generosity. My mother spoke briefly about their blessed life journey together. Joshua gave a rambling speech full of inside jokes that landed weakly. Then my father himself rose to address his guests. He looked exactly as he always had, imposing, immaculately dressed, radiating authority. Age had only added gravitas to his commanding presence. I'm humbled by your presence and your kind words, he began, the practiced humility contradicted by his satisfied expression. A man's 60th birthday offers perspective on what truly matters. Not the deals we've closed or the buildings we've raised, but the legacy we leave through our children. His gaze swept the room, lingering meaningfully on Joshua and Sophia, then shifting to me. Family is everything. The Williams name stands for excellence because each generation builds upon the achievements of those who came before. We support each other. We sacrifice for each other. Something in his tone made my shoulders tense. The speech was taking an unexpected direction. Tonight, he continued, I'm proud to announce that Williams Development will be expanding through a new partnership with Sunrest Properties, cemented by the upcoming union of our families through Joshua and Sophia's marriage. Polite applause rippled through the room. This was standard business celebration fare. Nothing surprising. To commemorate this occasion, I've decided it's time for some family reorganization. My father's gaze fixed directly on me now, his expression unreadable. Franklin, as my firstborn, you've always charted your own course. Now, it's time for you to demonstrate true family commitment. Joshua and Sophia will need an appropriate residence as they start their life together. Therefore, tonight I'm asking you to transfer ownership of the Genesis penthouse to your brother. The room fell silent. 210 pairs of eyes turned toward me. My blood seemed to freeze in my veins. Father, I said carefully, finding my voice. The penthouse is not just an investment property. It's my home, and the culmination of years of work. His expression hardened. It's a building, Franklin. Your brother is family. Surely your loyalty to him outweighs your attachment to mere property. Emily and I live there, I explained, keeping my tone measured despite the rising heat in my face. It's our home, designed specifically for. Emily can help you find another place, my father interrupted dismissively. Joshua and Sophia need the prestige of that address for their position in society. The naked entitlement stunned me. Not just the demand itself, but the absolute confidence that I would comply, that I should comply. I'm sorry, but no, I said firmly. The penthouse isn't available. But I'd be happy to help Joshua and Sophia find something suitable, perhaps even design something specifically for. The slap came without warning. My father had crossed the space between us in 2 strides, his hand connecting with my cheek with enough force to snap my head sideways. The crack echoed in the suddenly silent ballroom. Ungrateful, selfish boy, he hissed, his voice low but perfectly audible in the shocked quiet. After everything this family has done for you. 210 witnesses held their breath. Waitstaff froze mid-service. The string quartet ceased a note. I straightened slowly, feeling the sting spread across my face. 20 years ago, this moment would have destroyed me. 10 years ago, it would have broken me. 5 years ago, it would have enraged me. But standing there, having built my life, my company, and my values apart from the Williams name, I felt something unexpected. Clarity. Thank you, Father, I said quietly. Without another word, I turned and walked out of the ballroom, leaving behind confused murmurs and my father's thunderous expression. In the hotel lobby, I stopped at a decorative mirror to examine my cheek. A red handprint was already forming. My phone buzzed with a text from Emily. Are you okay? Call me. Instead of calling, I drove straight home to the penthouse, my penthouse, where Emily waited anxiously. Your mother called me, she explained, gently touching my red cheek. Said there was an unfortunate incident, and I should talk some sense into you. I laughed, the sound surprising both of us. That's one way to describe public assault. That night, as Emily held me, I realized something fundamental had shifted. The slap hadn't broken me. It had freed me. The last lingering hope for parental approval had been extinguished, replaced by something stronger, complete certainty in my own path. What will you do now? Emily asked as we watched dawn break over the city from our terrace. Something they'll never expect, I replied. The morning after the birthday disaster, my phone overflowed with messages. My mother left 5 increasingly frantic voicemails, each reframing the previous night's events. Your father was overwrought. You misunderstood his intentions. We need to move past this unfortunate misunderstanding. Joshua texted a single line. Way to ruin the old man's birthday, drama queen. Industry acquaintances sent carefully worded messages expressing concern about family tensions affecting market partnerships. Even my building's doorman asked discreetly if I needed security adjusted, as he'd heard about some family disagreement. News traveled fast in Boston's upper circles. Emily took the day off work, her concern evident as she watched me process the situation. "Talk to me," she urged over breakfast. "What are you thinking?" I touched my cheek. The visible mark faded, but the memory was still sharp. "I'm thinking there's something bigger happening here. Father would never make such a public demand unless he was desperate." "Desperate for what?" "Control over you, maybe?" I conceded. But the Williams empire doesn't make desperate plays for emotional satisfaction. There's always a business angle. This realization prompted me to call William, whose connections extended throughout Boston's business community. Our conversation was brief but illuminating. "I've been hearing whispers," he confirmed. "Williams' development overstretched on their waterfront project. Cost overruns in the tens of millions. The Sunrest partnership might be less strategic alliance, more financial rescue. So they need my penthouse as what, collateral? A sweetener for the deal?" "The Genesis is the most prestigious property in the city right now," William replied. "Having it as the crown jewel of their combined portfolio would signal strength during a shaky merger." Emily's expression grew concerned as I relayed this information. "So this isn't just about Joshua wanting your toys. They're trying to use my success to bail out their failures, while publicly humiliating me in the process," I added. Emily took my hands across the breakfast table. "What do you want to do? Not what would hurt them or satisfy some need for revenge, but what would make you feel whole." Her question cut through the anger and pain to something deeper. What did I truly want? Not revenge, not even vindication. What I wanted was recognition, not of my achievements, but of my autonomy, of my right to determine my own path without manipulation or control. "I want them to see me," I said finally. "Not as an extension of the Williams legacy, not as a resource to be tapped, but as Franklin, a separate, whole person with the right to make my own choices." Emily nodded. "Then that's the goal. Not punishing your father, but establishing boundaries that force recognition of your personhood." This perspective shifted my thinking entirely. Instead of reacting emotionally, I began approaching the situation strategically, a skill, ironically, learned from my father himself. First, I needed information. I contacted Thomas, whose financial background made him ideal for discrete research. "I need to understand Williams Development's current position," I explained. "Not the public balance sheet, but the real numbers." Next, I arranged lunch with Jessica. As an architect who regularly collaborated with various development firms, she had insights into industry relationships. "Sunrest has been pulling out of joint ventures left and right," she confirmed. "The rumor is they're consolidating resources for something big. A merger with Williams would give them access to prime locations they couldn't otherwise touch." With these initial data points, a picture began emerging. My father wasn't just being controlling. He was scrambling to save his company through this merger, using whatever leverage he could muster, including demanding my property to sweeten the deal. The final piece came unexpectedly. My mother appeared at my office unannounced, something so out of character it momentarily stunned my receptionist. "Franklin, darling," she began once settled in my visitor chair. "This situation has gotten out of hand. Your father regrets his emotional reaction." I waited, saying nothing. "He's under tremendous pressure," she continued, fidgeting with her wedding ring. "The waterfront project, well, there were complications. Regulatory issues. Unexpected soil contamination. The budget has become problematic, and your penthouse would help solve these problems." "How exactly?" I asked. She had the grace to look uncomfortable. "The Sunrest merger is delicate. Sophia's father admires your building greatly. Having it as part of the combined asset portfolio would facilitate using my success to paper over father's failures." I finished for her. "Family supports family, Franklin," she replied, her tone hardening slightly. "Joshua has always looked up to you. The blatant manipulation might once have worked. Today, it simply confirmed my suspicions." After my mother left, I called an emergency meeting with my core team: Emily, Thomas, William, and Jessica. "I need a comprehensive plan," I told them. "Not for revenge, but for boundary setting. Something that establishes once and for all that I won't be manipulated or controlled." Over the next 3 days, we developed a strategy. Thomas dove into public records and industry contacts to compile a detailed picture of Williams Development's vulnerabilities. Jessica mapped out their project timelines and commitments. William activated his network to gather intelligence on the Sunrest negotiations. What emerged was concerning. William's development had overextended significantly on the waterfront project, using financing methods that skirted regulatory boundaries. Nothing illegal, but ethically questionable, especially for a company that publicly prided itself on conservative business practices. They've been using company funds to maintain your parents' lifestyle, Thomas noted, showing me. Transaction records, private jets, the renovation of their Aspen house, Joshua's gambling debts, all technically structured as corporate retreats or client entertainment. This explained my father's increasingly desperate moves. If the Sunrest merger fell through, William's development might face not just embarrassment, but potential financial collapse. Emily, ever the voice of ethical consideration, posed the critical question. What's your goal here, Franklin? To watch them fail? I shook my head. No, my goal is independence. True independence. Not just professional separation, but personal boundaries they can never cross again. With this clarity, the final plan took shape. Not vengeance, but strategic self-protection. Not destruction, but definitive boundary setting. I'll need a lawyer present, I told the team. And I need this handled precisely according to plan. On Friday morning, exactly 1 week after the slap that changed everything, I made a call to my father's direct line. We need to talk, I said simply when he answered. Your office. Sunday afternoon at 2. Bring Mother, Joshua, and Sophia. I'll bring my team. His hesitation was brief, but noticeable. This family matter doesn't require outside participants. It stopped being just a family matter when you slapped me in front of 210 witnesses, I replied. Sunday at 2. I hung up before he could respond, then turned to Emily, who had been listening nearby. Phase 1 complete, I said. Now we prepare for Sunday. Sunday afternoon arrived with ominous storm clouds gathering over Boston's skyline, a theatrical backdrop for the confrontation ahead. Emily drove while I reviewed key points with our lawyer, Diane Patterson, a formidable litigator known for her unflappable demeanor. Thomas and William would meet us at Williams' development headquarters. Remember, Emily said as we pulled into the visitor parking space, this isn't about hurting them. It's about establishing boundaries. I squeezed her hand gratefully. I know. Freedom, not vengeance. The Williams development lobby featured a massive-scale model of the company's most famous projects, spotlighted like museum pieces. The security guard recognized me immediately. Mr. Franklin, he nodded respectfully. Your father said to send you straight up. The executive floor maintained the same intimidating aesthetic I remembered from childhood. Dark woods, subdued lighting, oversized artwork depicting historical Boston landscapes. My father's corner office occupied the prime position, with views of both the harbor and the financial district. Inside, the expected group awaited. My father sat behind his massive desk. Mother perched tensely on a side chair. Joshua and Sophia occupied the leather sofa, while Sophia's father, Harold Bennett, stood by the window, his expression carefully neutral. The surprise addition was Patricia Lloyd, the company's longtime legal counsel. Quite the welcoming committee, I observed, gesturing for Emily, Diane, Thomas, and William to take the remaining seats. This meeting is unnecessary, my father began immediately. Whatever grievance you think you have over a family disagreement. Robert, Diane interrupted smoothly. If you're characterizing physical assault in front of hundreds of witnesses as a family disagreement, I suggest you reconsider your terminology. My father's expression darkened. Patricia, please explain to this person that family matters remain private. Patricia shifted uncomfortably. While domestic matters typically remain privileged, the public nature of the incident creates certain exposures. We're not here about the slap, I interjected, keeping my voice calm, though I could pursue that if necessary. My mother gasped softly. Joshua rolled his eyes. Why are we here then? Harold Bennett asked, speaking for the first time. Some of us have other commitments today. I nodded to Thomas, who distributed bound folders to everyone present. Please take a moment to review these materials, I suggested. Watching their faces as they flipped through the pages was telling. My mother's confusion, Joshua's growing alarm, Harold's sudden stillness, and finally, most satisfyingly, my father's carefully controlled but unmistakable shock. This is confidential company information, he said finally. How did you access these records? Every document in that folder comes from public sources, Thomas explained. SEC filings, property records, tax assessments, public court documents. Individually, they tell little stories. Collectively, they tell quite a comprehensive one. About what exactly? Sophia asked, looking genuinely confused. About how Williams Development has systematically misrepresented its financial position, I explained. About how company funds have been diverted to personal expenses, including your $300,000 engagement ring. Sophia's hand instinctively covered the massive diamond. About how the waterfront project is 32% over budget with potential environmental compliance issues, I continued. And most importantly, about how the Sunrest merger isn't a strategic alliance, but a desperate attempt to avoid potential bankruptcy. Harold Bennett closed his folder with deliberate care. Is this accurate, Robert? My father's face had transformed to the rigid mask I recognized from childhood confrontations. These figures are taken out of context. Patterson here can explain the appropriate accounting standards that. Stop, I said firmly. The particulars aren't important. What matters is that you're willing to sacrifice anything and anyone, including your own son, to save appearances. Sophia turned to Joshua, who was staring at the financial statements with growing horror. Did you know about this? Is your family really in financial trouble? Joshua's silence was answer enough. What exactly do you want, Franklin? My father demanded. Money? Revenge? To destroy this family's legacy. I want recognition, I replied simply. Recognition that I am not an extension of you or this company. Recognition that my achievements are my own. Recognition that my boundaries deserve respect. My mother's carefully maintained composure cracked slightly. Darling, family doesn't set boundaries against family. We're trying to help Joshua establish himself just as we helped you. You never helped me. I corrected her gently. I built my company despite your opposition, not because of your support. Harold Bennett closed his folder and stood abruptly. I believe Sophia and I need to reevaluate certain arrangements. Robert, expect a call from my office tomorrow. Harold, don't be hasty, my father began, but the older man was already guiding his daughter toward the door. Sophia paused, slipping off her engagement ring and placing it on the coffee table. I agreed to marry into success, Joshua, not scandal. After they departed, the remaining atmosphere grew heavier. Congratulations, Joshua spat bitterly. You've ruined everything. No, I replied. Poor financial management and ethical shortcuts ruined everything. I'm simply refusing to be the sacrificial solution. My father stood, his imposing frame seeming somehow diminished. What happens now? You've made your point. Will you distribute these findings to our investors? Complete your revenge by destroying everything I've built. I shook my head. That was never my goal. I have a proposal. I nodded to William, who outlined our prepared plan. A restructuring of Williams Development with proper corporate governance, transparent accounting practices, and ethical business standards. The company would maintain its legacy projects while adopting more sustainable practices for future developments. You're proposing to take over my company? My father asked incredulously. I'm proposing to save it, I corrected. With conditions. Those conditions were straightforward. My father would remain as chairman emeritus, with limited operational authority. Joshua would work in the restructured company, starting in project management rather than executive leadership. Most importantly, my autonomy would be absolutely respected. No more demands, no more manipulation, no more treating me as a resource rather than a person. And if I refuse, my father challenged. Diane spoke up. Then my client walks away. These folders remain closed, but the information exists. Robert, your investors and partners will eventually discover the same facts we did. The silence that followed lasted nearly a full minute. I watched the calculations happen behind my father's eyes. Pride versus pragmatism, ego versus survival. You planned this whole thing, he said finally, a hint of reluctant admiration in his voice. You knew exactly what you were doing. I learned from watching you, I acknowledged. Though I hope I'm applying those lessons more ethically. My mother looked between us, then asked the question that truly mattered. Will you come back to the family, Franklin, if we agree to your terms? I reached for Emily's hand. I never left the family, Mother. I simply stopped accepting mistreatment as the price of admission. By sunset, the preliminary agreements were signed. Williams' development would survive, but transformed. My boundaries would be respected. And perhaps most surprisingly, my father had looked me in the eye, truly seen me, for the first time in memory. As we prepared to leave, he approached awkwardly. "The penthouse," he began, "remains mine. I finished for him. But I'm happy to help Joshua find something suitable for his new start." My father nodded, the gesture containing something I'd never seen before: respect. The months following our confrontation brought transformation beyond anything I could have anticipated. Williams' development underwent a complete restructuring, with new governance policies and transparent financial practices. My father stepped back into an advisory role, focusing on client relationships rather than operational decisions. To everyone's surprise, he adapted to this diminished position with unexpected grace. "He seems almost relieved," Emily observed after witnessing my father at a company event. "Like he's been carrying a burden that's finally been shared." Joshua's journey proved more challenging. The dissolution of his engagement to Sophia hit him hard, forcing him to confront uncomfortable truths about himself and his position in society. Without the cushion of preferential treatment, he initially floundered in his new project management role. "I don't understand these technical specifications," he complained during one early meeting. "Can't someone else handle the details?" "That's the job," I explained patiently, learning the fundamentals before making executive decisions. His resentment gradually gave way to reluctant effort, then surprising engagement. 6 months in, he successfully managed his first small renovation project from concept to completion. The pride he felt in this earned achievement was visibly different from his previous entitlement. "I actually understand what we're building now," he admitted during a site visit. "It's satisfying." My mother struggled most with the new family dynamic. Decades of maintaining appearances and mediating my father's demands had left her without clear purpose in a more authentic environment. "I don't know how to be in this new arrangement," she confessed during an unexpected visit to the penthouse. "Everyone seems to be speaking a different language now." Emily, with her characteristic compassion, suggested mother explore her own interests beyond social obligations. "What did you love doing before you were Mrs. Williams?" This simple question sparked a hesitant renaissance. My mother gradually rediscovered her interest in botanical illustration, eventually volunteering at the public gardens and developing friendships outside the constraining circle of society wives. The most profound change occurred in my relationship with my father. Our weekly business meetings evolved from tense negotiations to increasingly open exchanges. Never demonstrative, he nonetheless found ways to signal his evolving perspective. "Your environmental efficiency models," he noted during one quarterly review. "They've reduced operating costs across all properties." I was incorrect in my assessment of their value. From him, this qualified acknowledgement represented monumental progress. Emily and I proceeded with our lives, making the penthouse truly our home and eventually getting engaged. When I called to share this news, my mother immediately began planning an elaborate society wedding. "Nothing too extravagant," I cautioned. "It's not every day my son gets married," she protested. "Your son gets married," I repeated, emphasizing the words, "not the Williams heir." "Emily and I want something meaningful, not a business networking event." This distinction between person and position became my mantra during family interactions. Each time they slipped into old patterns, I gently redirected toward more authentic connection. 1 year after the confrontation, my father requested a private dinner. We met at a small restaurant rather than his club, neutral territory that symbolized our evolving relationship. After preliminaries, he cleared his throat awkwardly. "I've been seeing someone," he said. "A therapist. At your mother's insistence initially, but now because I find it useful." This admission stunned me more than anything that had transpired before. Robert Williams acknowledging he might benefit from psychological guidance represented a seismic shift in his self-perception. He suggests I've spent my life confusing control for connection. My father continued, studying his water glass intently, that I've sacrificed relationships for achievement. I waited, sensing he needed to proceed at his own pace. "The night I struck you," he said finally, meeting my eyes with visible effort. I was terrified. Not angry, terrified. Everything was collapsing. I couldn't admit failure. Couldn't show weakness. "So, you tried to solve it by taking what I'd built," I supplied. He nodded, shame briefly crossing his features. "It was wrong. Deeply wrong. I'm sorry, Franklin." The apology hung between us, unexpected and transformative. Not because it erased the past, but because it acknowledged it honestly. Thank you, I said simply. I've never been good at seeing people, he continued. Only their utility. My father was the same. It seemed normal. This glimpse into the generational patterns shaping our family expanded my perspective. My father hadn't been born controlling and dismissive. He'd been shaped that way, just as he'd attempted to shape me. We can do better, I told him. Break the pattern. That conversation marked a turning point in our healing. Not instant reconciliation, but the beginning of something healthier, a relationship based on respect rather than obligation. The Williams family gathering for Christmas that year differed markedly from any previous occasion. Held at my penthouse rather than the family mansion, it featured relaxed conversation instead of performative perfection. Joshua brought a woman he'd met through volunteer work, someone who clearly valued him for himself rather than his name. My mother shared her botanical drawings with genuine enthusiasm. My father, still reserved but increasingly present, actually listened to others' perspectives. As I watched them interact, Emily slipped her arm around my waist. You did this, she whispered. Not by forcing change, but by standing firmly in your truth. Her observation crystallized the profound lesson of my journey. True strength isn't found in domination or control, but in maintaining healthy boundaries with compassion. Real victory doesn't require crushing opponents, but establishing mutual respect. The path to healing my family, paradoxically, began with refusing to sacrifice myself to their dysfunction. By valuing my own worth enough to establish boundaries, I created space for authentic connection to grow. That evening, as guests departed, my father paused at the door. You're home, he said, gesturing to the penthouse around us. It truly is extraordinary, a fitting expression of your vision. The compliment, specific, genuine, and without agenda, meant more than any previous acknowledgement. Sometimes the strongest response to a slap isn't striking back, but standing firm in your truth. Sometimes the deepest wounds heal not through revenge, but through refusing to perpetuate patterns of hurt. And sometimes the most powerful statement isn't a shout of defiance, but a quiet, unwavering commitment to your own worth. Have you ever had to stand your ground against family pressure? What boundaries have you needed to establish in your own relationships? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments. If this journey of standing up for yourself resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe for more authentic life experiences. Remember, setting boundaries isn't selfish. It's the foundation for healthy relationships. Thank you for listening, and may you find the courage to honor your own worth, even when it's challenging.